In a small, dusty village, where the days were long and the nights were silent, lived a poor cobbler who spent his life stitching torn shoes and polishing old leather. For the villagers, his shop was no more than a broken mud hut with a thatched roof. Yet it stood as a place where everyone came when their shoes gave up and their pockets had no strength for new ones. He was known to be honest, never charging more than a fair coin. Even when his own children went hungry, his hands were rough from years of work, and his eyes carried both wisdom and worry. One evening, as the sun dipped into a sea of orange, the cobbler sat outside his shop, looking at the empty street and wondering how long his honesty would feed only his poverty. He had repaired shoes all day, yet earned just enough to buy a handful of flour. The world seemed unfair to him, for he saw wealthy traders pass by in shiny carriages, laughing loudly, while he counted each coin with trembling fingers. That night, when the village went quiet and the moon rose pale above the fields, he remained seated alone with his thoughts. Suddenly, from the edge of the fields, he heard a rustle. A sly figure appeared in the moonlight. It was a jackal, its fur glowing faintly, its eyes sharp and clever. Unlike other wild creatures, it did not run away. Instead, it walked slowly towards the cobbler and sat before him as if it had come with a purpose. The cobbler looked at it in surprise, for never before had an animal behaved with such calmness. The jackal tilted its head, and then, in a strange, low voice, it spoke. "You are a man who works hard, yet remains poor and forgotten. Why waste your life in this misery when there are easier ways to live?" The cobbler's heart raced, for he could not believe what he was hearing. An animal speaking like a man. The jackal continued, "I can show you a path where gold will flow without effort, where respect will come without sweat, where hunger will never touch your children. All you must do is listen to me." The cobbler trembled, caught between fear and curiosity. His mind shouted that it was madness, yet his heart whispered that, perhaps, fate had finally sent him a chance. The jackal leaned closer, its eyes glowing brighter, and it asked him a question that froze him in place. "Do you wish to remain the poor, honest cobbler forever, or are you ready to taste the life that power and cunning can give?" The cobbler sat in silence, staring at the jackal, whose voice carried both temptation and danger. His heart beat like a drum against his chest. Never in his life had he imagined that an animal could talk to him, let alone offer him a path to wealth. The village around him lay in darkness. Only the faint glow of the moon lit the mud walls and empty streets. The jackal's words echoed again. "Do you wish to remain the poor, honest cobbler forever, or are you ready to taste the life that power and cunning can give?" The cobbler swallowed hard. He remembered his children, asleep at home, their stomachs never full. He thought of his wife, whose tired eyes carried the weight of their hunger, and his own hands, worn from endless stitching. He wanted to shout that, yes, he wished for a better life, but his tongue froze, for he also remembered the teachings of his late father, who had told him honesty is the only wealth that never leaves you. The jackal seemed to read his hesitation, and with a sly smile it spoke again. "I know what you are thinking. You believe honesty will save you, but tell me, has it ever given you more than hunger and dust? Has it ever raised you above this broken hut? Look around you. The world respects only those who grab what they want, not those who wait." The cobbler felt a strange fire rise in his chest. The truth of those words cut him deeply, for he had lived his entire life waiting for fortune to knock at his door, but it never did. Still, his father's voice whispered inside him, urging him not to trust the creature before him. He finally spoke in a trembling tone. "What is it that you want from me, jackal? Why would you help a poor man like me?" The jackal's eyes gleamed, and it lowered its voice as if sharing a dangerous secret. "Because helping you will help me too. Together, we can change this village forever, but only if you are willing to take the first step." The cobbler leaned forward despite himself his curiosity, now stronger than his fear, and he asked in a whisper, "What first step?" The jackal's grin widened, its teeth shining in the pale light, and, with a voice heavy with mystery, it said, "You must prove you are ready by doing something tonight. Something that will change everything." The cobbler's hands shook as he listened to the jackal's chilling words. Something tonight? Something that will change everything. The air around them felt heavier, the night quieter, as if the whole village was asleep, unaware of the dangerous bargain being whispered outside its walls. The cobbler gathered courage and asked in a low voice, "What must I do?" The jackal leaned closer, its sharp eyes glittering like pieces of glass, and said, "There is a merchant in this village who keeps his earnings hidden beneath a wooden chest in his courtyard. Every night he sleeps in luxury while men like you starve. If you wish to change your fate, you must go there tonight. Take what you find and bring it to me when the sun rises. You will no longer be a cobbler, you will be a man who holds power." The cobbler froze. The word struck him like fire. Stealing was something he had never even thought of in his hardest days. His honesty was the only wealth he carried, even when coins were few. Yet here was a chance to end all hunger, to lift his family from misery. His mind swirled between right and wrong. His father's voice warned him that dishonesty destroys faster than fire, but his children's hungry faces flashed before him louder than any memory. He whispered, "How can I do this? The merchant is wealthy and guarded." The jackal chuckled, its laugh echoing in the night. "Leave that to me. I know a way into his courtyard. No one will see you. I only need your courage to step inside and take what is waiting." The cobbler looked at his rough hands, the same hands that had mended broken shoes with patience and truth. Now the same hands were being tempted to steal. Sweat rolled down his forehead and his heart pounded as he realized that whatever choice he made tonight would change his life forever. The jackal tilted its head, watching him like a hunter waits for prey, and with a sly grin it asked, "So, cobbler, will you take the step, or shall I leave you to your poverty?" The cobbler sat frozen, his breath shallow, his mind caught between the echo of his father's words and the sharp whisper of the jackal. The village slept in peace, unaware of the storm boiling inside his heart. He thought of the merchant, the richest man of the village, whose house stood like a palace of mud and stone, guarded by thick walls and an iron gate. The merchant had always looked down upon him, tossing old coins as if throwing scraps to a beggar. The cobbler remembered the insults and the hunger, and his children's frail faces pressed against empty plates. The jackal's voice slithered through the night. "Why should men like him live in wealth while you break your back for pennies? Come with me, and you will see how easy it is to take what you deserve." The cobbler trembled as he rose to his feet. Every step he took felt like walking away from the man he had always been, but he followed the jackal through narrow lanes and shadows that twisted like serpents around the sleeping village. The sound of dogs barking in the distance made his chest tighten, but the jackal moved with uncanny confidence, leading him to the tall walls of the merchant's courtyard. There, in the silence of the night, the jackal whispered, "Push this loose plank and crawl inside. No one will hear you." The cobbler's knees weakened, his hands pressed against the cold mud wall. Sweat trickled down his temples, his heart beat so loudly he feared it would wake the whole village. He whispered in fear, "What if I am caught?" The jackal's eyes glowed with impatience. "No one will catch you unless you lose your courage. Now crawl inside. Take the chest and bring it to me." The cobbler stared at the narrow opening, a path into both fortune and ruin. He closed his eyes and drew a long breath. When he opened them again, his hand reached for the plank that separated him from the life he had never dared to imagine. The cobbler's fingers trembled as they touched the loose plank, and, with a quiet creak, it shifted open, revealing the dark, courtyard of the wealthy merchant. Inside, the night air smelled of spices and old leather, while faint snores drifted from the house. The cobbler crawled inside, his heart racing louder than his footsteps. He had never entered a rich man's house in such a manner. His entire life had been spent serving them, polishing their shoes, bowing to their insults. Now he was standing within their walls with a forbidden purpose. The moonlight cast long shadows across the yard, and in the center lay a large wooden chest, its brass edges glimmering faintly like hidden fire. The jackal whispered from behind, "Take it quickly, no one will see you." The cobbler hesitated. His father's voice echoed again, "Honesty is the only wealth that never leaves you." He clutched his chest as if the words were carved there, but then he remembered his wife's tired eyes and his children's hunger, and his will faltered slowly. He stepped forward, each movement heavy with guilt. When he reached the chest, he bent down and touched it. The wood was solid, the lock weak. It would take little effort to open, but his hands refused to move. Sweat rolled down his back. He whispered to himself, "Am I a thief now, or still a cobbler?" The jackal hissed impatiently, "Open it, fool. The night is fading." Yet as the cobbler struggled within himself, a sound pierced the silence, the distant cry of a child waking inside the merchant's house. The cobbler froze his breath, caught his heart hammering in terror, for he knew one wrong move now could bring disaster, and yet the jackal's glowing eyes urged him on. The cobbler froze at the sound of the child's cry, his body stiff as stone. The merchant's house stirred faintly within, as if life had awakened for a moment. The cobbler felt every drop of fear sink deep into his bones. The chest lay before him, heavy with temptation. The jackal's glowing eyes urged him forward with silent command, "Take it before it is too late." The cobbler bent lower, his hands trembling as he touched the weak lock. His mind screamed at him to stop. His father's words thundered in his memory, "Honesty is the only wealth that never leaves you." But hunger and desperation twisted those words into fragile whispers. He pulled at the lock, and it snapped open. The lid creaked, and inside the faint silver of coins shone like captured moonlight. The cobbler's breath caught, his hands shook as he touched the cold metal. Never before had he held so much wealth. The sound of it was like music, yet it was also poison, filling his ears with guilt. He lifted a handful of coins, their weight heavier than any shoe he had ever repaired. The jackal hissed softly, "Good. Now take them and leave." But just as the cobbler began to gather more, the door of the house groaned faintly, as if someone was about to step into the courtyard. Terror gripped him, his chest tightened, and sweat poured from his forehead. The jackal's tail swished impatiently, urging him to move faster. The cobbler whispered in panic, "What if they see me? What if I am caught?" The jackal's voice was a sharp whisper, stronger than the fear itself. "If you falter now, everything will be lost. Take the coins and run before the night betrays you." The cobbler's breath came in short bursts. The weight of choice pressed down, heavier than the chest itself, and in that suffocating moment he knew his life would never be the same again. The cobbler's heart raced as the wooden door of the merchant's house groaned open. For a moment the entire world seemed to hold its breath. He crouched low beside the chest, clutching the coins, his palms sweaty with both fear and greed. The jackal's glowing eyes burned from the shadows, urging him to move, but his legs felt rooted to the earth. A lantern flickered faintly in the doorway, and the figure of the merchant appeared, his heavy frame outlined against the dim light. The cobbler gasped silently, terror clawing at his throat. He wanted to run, but the sound of footsteps echoed across the courtyard. The merchant muttered, half asleep, before retreating back inside, leaving the chest untouched. The cobbler's lungs released the breath he had been holding. His heart still pounded like a drum. His hands shook violently as he stuffed more coins into his torn cloth bag. The jackal crept closer, its whisper sharp and cold, "Take all that you can. Fortune does not wait." The cobbler's face glistened. With sweat his conscience tore at him with invisible claws. Each coin felt heavier than stone, yet he continued, unable to resist the gleam of silver once the bag was half-filled. The jackal's voice grew harsher. Enough now, go before dawn finds you. The cobbler staggered to his feet, his knees weak, the bag heavy against his shoulder. The courtyard seemed endless as he crawled back through the loose plank, his chest burning with every breath. Once outside the wall, he collapsed into the dirt, panting as if he had outrun death itself. The jackal's grin widened in the moonlight, its teeth flashing like knives. You have taken the first step, cobbler. You are no longer the man you once were. Tonight you are reborn. The cobbler shivered at the words, for deep inside he knew the creature was right. He had crossed a line that could never be walked back, and as he stumbled towards the darkness of the fields, the question burned in his soul: had he gained freedom, or had he chained himself forever? The cobbler stumbled through the fields, his bag heavy with stolen coins. Every step he took seemed to echo with guilt. The night air felt colder than before, and the silence pressed hard on his chest. The jackal padded beside him, its glowing eyes glinting with triumph. You see, cobbler, fortune is yours now. Hunger will never touch you again. The cobbler could barely breathe. His hands clenched the bag so tightly his knuckles turned white. His mind churned with fear and shame. He saw images of his wife's face, her eyes tired but honest. He imagined his children smiling with food in their hands. But then his father's voice thundered again inside his head. Honesty is the only wealth that never leaves you. He shook violently as if the words were chains dragging him back to who he had been. Yet the coins in his bag clinked with a sound too powerful to ignore. When he finally reached his hut, he pushed open the weak door and entered quietly. His wife stirred from her mat and asked in a sleepy whisper, "What kept you so late?" He froze, the bag hidden behind his back, his lips dry. He forced a smile and muttered, "Nothing, only work." She looked at him with suspicion, but too weary to ask further. She lay back down. The cobbler sat alone in the darkness, the bag of coins before him. The jackal's voice lingered in his ears. "This is only the beginning. Tomorrow you will see how the village will bow before you." But as he stared at the shining coins, he felt no joy, only the crushing weight of a secret that burned his soul. And he wondered if dawn would bring light or expose the shadow he had just stepped into. The morning sun rose slowly over the village, painting the mud houses in shades of gold. But for the cobbler, the light brought no warmth, only fear. As he sat by his bench, pretending to stitch old shoes, his mind was haunted by the clinking of coins hidden inside his hut. Every sound from the street made him flinch. Every voice seemed to accuse him. Soon the cry of the merchant spread through the village. His chest has been broken into, his silver gone, stolen by a thief. Villagers gathered, whispering angrily. The cobbler's hands trembled as he worked, sweat rolling down his brow. Though no one looked at him, suspicion gnawed at his soul. The jackal appeared from the shadows, its sly grin cutting through his fear. "See, cobbler, the world blames a faceless thief, not you. They will never know unless you let your guilt betray you." The cobbler swallowed hard, but his conscience screamed louder than the jackal. He saw the merchant pacing in rage, vowing to find the culprit. The cobbler imagined being caught, his family disgraced, his children cursed by the village. His body shook, yet the jackal leaned close and whispered, "This is your chance to rise. Buy better tools. A new shop people will respect you. Wealth brings power, not honesty." Still, the cobbler's heart ached with doubt. That night, as the village remained restless, the cobbler sat staring at the bag of coins while the jackal circled him like a shadow, its voice a constant whisper urging him to embrace the new life. But deep within his chest, another voice rose, stubborn and faint, asking him, "How long can you live a lie?" The cobbler sat in the silence of night. The stolen coins glimmering faintly before him like a curse. He had not slept for days. Each moment his heart battled between greed and guilt. The jackal prowled around him, whispering sweet promises of power, respect, and freedom, yet every whisper only deepened his torment. Finally, he rose to his feet, clutching the bag of coins. He walked out into the cool night air, his steps heavy, toward the merchant's grand house. The jackal hissed furiously, "What are you doing, fool? Are you throwing away your chance?" But the cobbler did not stop. His father's words burned in his soul. Honesty is the only wealth that never leaves you. When he reached the courtyard, he pushed the loose plank and slipped inside, placing the bag of coins back into the chest. His hands trembled, but his heart felt lighter for the first time in days. As he turned to leave, a lantern flared. The merchant stood in the doorway, his eyes narrowing in shock and suspicion. The cobbler fell to his knees, tears streaming from his face, and confessed everything. He told of his hunger, his weakness, and the jackal that tempted him. The merchant's anger softened as he saw the honesty shining in the cobbler's words. Instead of punishing him, he lifted the man to his feet and said, "Your truth has saved you. Where others would lie, you have returned what was not yours. From this day forward, you will work not as a poor cobbler, but under my roof, as a trusted man." The cobbler wept with gratitude, his heart finally free. While outside, the jackal howled in fury, fading into the darkness, never to return. And so the cobbler learned that though lies may offer quick riches, only honesty can bring peace that lasts forever. As the moonlight bathed the quiet village, the cobbler sat once more before his humble bench, this time not burdened by guilt, but strengthened by truth. The coins no longer haunted him. The jackal's whispers had vanished into the darkness forever. He looked at his rough hands and for the first time felt pride, not in wealth, but in the honesty that had guided him back from the edge of ruin. Children's laughter filled his home, his wife's smile returned, and even the villagers looked at him with respect greater than gold. The story of the cobbler spread beyond the fields, whispered from one town to another, not of a thief who fell, but of a man who rose by choosing what was right. And as the night settled into peace, a simple truth remained clear for all who listened, that riches gained by deceit may shine for a moment, but honesty shines for a lifetime.